Hi, I'm Natalie from Waterworks Quilting. Today we're going to talk about how to square up fabric. First, let's talk about the grain of the fabric. I have a piece here, a standard width. One side is your selvage here, it happens to be blue. And the other side over here, the selvage is white. Sometimes both selvages are white, sometimes they're not. First, let's talk about the grain of the fabric. The way fabric is woven is some threads are here parallel to what would be the selvage, and then the other threads are at a 90-degree angle to the first group, the horizontal grain or the cross grain. The lengthwise grain has almost no stretch, and the crosswise grain has little stretch, not much. It's the bias that has the stretch in a woven fabric. That's at a 45-degree angle to the other threads. That has much stretch. You don't want that on the edge of your quilt or your quilt blocks. Your blocks should have the straight of grain along the edge. That means either the lengthwise grain or the crosswise grain along the edge of your blocks or your units. Now I'm going to show you how I square up fabric. You take the two selvages and line them up like so. What you're trying to do is hold it up in the air. You want to get those threads to hang perpendicular to where the selvages are. And what you're trying to do is get that fold to hang nicely. If it's off of square, you'll see that doesn't want to hang right. It's all bubbled up. So as you take the selvages like so with your fingers, you can manipulate that. Pull one down, pull the other one up, one side down, one side up, and then keep shaking it. What you want to do is get that fold to hang perfectly. You can see it hanging there just right, and then you know that it's hanging square to itself. That means that the threads are perpendicular to the selvage. That's when you're going to lay it down to cut a strip that's on the straight of grain. Lay it down like this, and you bring the selvages up to that fold. You can tidy up the fold a little bit like so, but if it's not laying flat, you need to readjust your selvages. Let's say our fold was not laying flat. This is what it's going to look like when you lay it down. Be like that. You're going to try to tidy up the fold, and it's going to have all sort of wrinkles in it. It's never going to want to lay flat. So go back to starting out. Move those selvages. One sideways, the other way. Until that fold lays perfectly so. You see how it's hanging just perfect. Square to the weave of the fabric. And when you go like this, you can see it's laying perfectly nice. Bring your selvage up to that fold, staying exactly parallel to the fold. Now your ends are very uneven. That's the whole reason we're doing this. They're very uneven. When they're cut at the quilt shop, they're not even. Now there's a few different ways you can do this. I'm going to do it in this manner. You have it laying on your cutting board. Don't worry about the lines here. Let's use the lines on the ruler instead. Line up whatever line you want on your ruler this way, along this particular fold, making sure that when you cut this, you're going to catch all the fabrics. You want to cut off all of this so that you have a perfectly even edge. Double check along this fold. Is it square to your ruler on one of the ruler lines? If these two are not both square to each other, you've got to refold the fabric. Once those are ready, then you just need to cut here. That's a perfectly square end to your fabric. Then you're ready to cut a strip. What I usually do, instead of disturbing that, I turn this whole board around. And let's say I want to cut a 3-inch strip. Now I can line up the 3-inch line here along the edge of my fabric. At the same time, I make sure one of my lines is here along the fabric, so I'm continuing to know that I'm square. When you aren't as careful as possible cutting these strips, that's when you end up with an elbow in your strip. I'm sure most of you know what that means. I won't even have to show you. But the elbows are bad news, especially when you're using this long strip for a border. That's one way that your borders become wavy. Well, let's take a look. How is this? Looks awfully straight. I don't see any V's. I don't see any elbows. It takes some effort and a little bit of time to get that squared up perfectly, but it's definitely worth the time in the end. Then once you have this strip, now you can cross cut it as needed. I'm going to cut it at 3 inches because in my next video we're going to talk about half square triangles. So now we've squared up the edge of our fabric and cut a perfectly square strip off the edge. Join me next time when we talk about how to make half square triangles using the same information about the grain of fabric. Bye for now.